And now, turning to our program, please welcome Rotary Past President Ed Krishock, Principal of Remaining Awake LLC, to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, President Kent. Hi, everyone. I'm pleased to introduce today's program, along with an upcoming series of evening programs on immigration, all organized by our Understanding Structural Racism Committee. Today, during the lunch hour here at War Memorial Center, we will listen in on a conversation with our guest, Darryl Morin, about the economic impacts of immigration and immigration policy. I'll share more about today's program and our guest in a moment. Looking beyond today to the weeks and months ahead, we'll all have the opportunity to venture outside the cozy confines of our Tuesday lunchtime home into the community, to participate in conversations about immigration and immigration policies with members of the immigrant communities that help form the fabric of Milwaukee and whose day-to-day lives are most deeply affected by those policies. These in-the-community experiences and discussions will allow us to engage directly with our Milwaukee neighbors to better understand their immigration story and immigration experience, and to gain insight into the impact immigration policy and immigration enforcement has on their lives. It's a chance to have our opinions and our actions shaped by firsthand human experience rather than just by what we read in the papers, what we view on television, and what we see in our social media feeds. This kind of person-to-person connection is one of the things that I think Rotary does best, and I urge each of us to find the time in our schedules to be a part of it. The first in the community experience and discussion with members of Milwaukee's Muslim immigrant community, including immigrants from Afghanistan and Somalia, is scheduled for Wednesday, April 29th from 5 p.m. until 7 p.m., hosted by Masjid al-Nur, the Islamic Society of Milwaukee Brookfield. Sign-up sheets are available starting today. Special thanks to Janan Najib and Judge Nidhi Kashyap for organizing the first event in this series. Additional in the community experiences and discussions will be held in June with members of Milwaukee's Hmong community, and in late August or September with members of Milwaukee's Hispanic community. Now, back to our regularly scheduled program. Today, we begin our exploration of immigration and immigration policy through a conversation with Darryl Morin, hosted by Rotarian Dave Haynes, on the economic and business impacts of immigration, immigration policy, and immigration enforcement. David Haynes is the founding editor of the Ideas Lab at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, where he worked for more than 30 years before retiring in 2022. He is also the founder of the Wisconsin Alliance for Civic Trust, a cross-partisan citizen group that works to build trust in our political system, support for fair, safe, and secure elections, and peaceful engagement in civic life. Darryl Morin is president and CEO of Advanced Wireless, Inc., a leading provider of advanced networking, mobile computing, and barcode solutions serving clients in 19 countries around the world. In addition to his business leadership, Mr. Morin is a nationally recognized civic leader. He serves as national president of Forward Latino, an organization dedicated to empowering Latino voices and advancing public policy solutions with members and affiliates in 29 states. He was a charter member of the Archdiocese of Milwaukee's Justice for Immigrants Committee, is vice chairman of the La Casa de Esperanza Foundation Board in Waukesha, and serves on the boards of the Jewish Museum of Milwaukee and the Hmong American Peace Academy, the nation's largest educational institution serving the Hmong community. Mr. Morin has received numerous honors for his civic and philanthropic efforts and is a respected national voice on public policy and civic engagement, appearing on ABC, NBC, CNN, Fox News, PBS, Telemundo, and Univision, and in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, New York Times, and Washington Post. He's a graduate of the University of North Texas and is a proud husband and father of 2 sons, one serving overseas in the United States Air Force and a younger son who will be attending the United States Naval Academy this fall. Please join me in welcoming Darryl Morin and our host, David Haynes, for today's program.
Well, Darryl, thanks so much for joining us today to talk about the economic impact of immigration and immigration policy. So to get started, maybe you could just talk about who are the people we're talking about?
So first off, thank you all for having me here today. Really appreciate the invitation. And thank you for everything the Rotary does for people not just here, but around the globe. Your impact has been so tremendous. So I want to thank you for that. Immigration. Boy, this subject never comes up, right? It's been so divisive in so many different areas that sometimes it's hard just to have a really good conversation about it. So that's why I welcome this conversation so much, this opportunity to dialogue with you. So we have a little over 320,000 immigrants, both documented and undocumented, here in the state of Wisconsin. About 69,000 of those, per the latest projections, are undocumented, right? About 70% of that are of Hispanic heritage. Others come from Asia, come from Europe, and other places around the world. So it's about 70% of that. And about 5,400 of those are DACA recipients. But we'll go throughout this presentation. We'll talk about the economic impact they're having here. You can see just the general numbers there, right? $3.5 billion in tax contributions and over $10 billion right here in the state of Wisconsin in spending power. So they really have, and immigrants have really had a substantial impact on our state.
So when you say 3.5 billion in tax contributions and the 10 billion in spending power, that's all immigrants?
Correct, that's all immigrants, both documented and undocumented,
Okay.
correct.
Great. Well, as we've seen, this is a rapidly changing issue. Could you give us a quick synopsis of the sort of current state of federal immigration policy?
Yes, we can. So this is what we keep seeing in the news night after night right now. So the good news is we have seen the border. We're seeing very few border crossings these days, right? The real challenge, particularly for the business community, is we're not seeing any viable solutions to help us get the workers and the workforce that we need. So we saw with the passage of the big, beautiful bill, over $170 billion over the next 4 to 5 years have been appropriated to immigration enforcement here in the country. Just to give you an idea, the U.S. Marine Corps gets about $50 billion a year. So just to give you the scale of an investment that's being made there. We're seeing a dramatic increase in enforcement activities, right? Increased cost and difficulty for people to come here lawfully. For people who really study this issue, I know one of the biggest questions I always get is, why don't they just come here the right way? Well, for the overwhelming number of people around the world, there is no line you can get into. We're very, very selective. Right now, if you wanted to, and this is a new barrier that was just put up, if you're a company wanting to bring over an employee because they have a specific skill set, H-1B visa, the cost has just gone up to over $100,000 per application. Right, so we're seeing additional barriers being put up to people trying to come here lawfully. We're seeing efforts such as TPS, temporary protected status. Those are being canceled. Most of those are being challenged in the courts right now, so it hasn't been finalized. But that'll take about 800 to 1 million people with work permits who are currently working in the U.S. economy out of the system. So those are people that came here lawfully under temporary protected status, and right, we're seeing efforts to negate all of their protections. As I mentioned before, border crossings are dramatically down, and we're at the point right now where we're experiencing negative immigration. We're seeing more people leaving the country than coming in, and that is presenting some serious complications for our country and our state.
So looking specifically at Wisconsin, how do the policies that are currently in place affect businesses here?
So nationwide, we're experiencing a worker shortage. And I want to thank the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for the graphics. Their data, though, is coming directly from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is the December numbers, right? Nationwide, we have a worker shortage. We have it broken out by list of severity here. In Wisconsin, for every 100 jobs we only have 75 unemployed workers. So if by magic we took every unemployed person in the state of Wisconsin and overnight we were able to train them and they were motivated to do an open job and we plugged them into those open jobs, we'd be more than 30,000 people short. And that's with all the immigrants we currently have working throughout the state. So I will share with you, Just about a month ago, I had to help a major healthcare network provide them with some expertise so that they could bring in an oncologist with this particular expertise because they couldn't get them. We're continuously trying to help recruit, bring in nurses into the state, et cetera. And I've literally had some pretty major customers say, Darryl, we want to keep building in Wisconsin. We love Wisconsin. We love the work ethic. But we're concerned right now that we're not going to be able to get the labor we need. And that's where they're at right now.
How does it break down by industry, or are there some industries that are more affected than others, and what are those?
Yes, so people don't typically equate manufacturing with the big immigration relationship, but there actually is. So we have about 10,000 people in the state right now that are filling manufacturing jobs right now. You'll see on the slide, professional, scientific, management, et cetera, another 8,000. Hospitality and entertainment, another 6,000. Construction, another 5,000. Retail, another 4,000. And the latest dairy numbers, boy, 70% of their workforce. 70%, right, over 10,000 workers right now are all undocumented. I just came back from a trip about a month and a half ago. We're going to have another trip next month with a bunch of dairy farmers. Cows need to be milked continuously, year round. And most dairy farmers that go with us say, they can only count on their friends and family to help them milk cows for maybe 3 or 4 days before they fall into desperate straits and would have to close their dairies if they lost their undocumented labor right now.
So I'm not sure what you know about this, but I've read recently that there's been some efforts on the part of the administration to allow some more immigrant labor for certain areas of the agriculture sector.
Yeah, so, and here's where, once again, it's difficult to try to make sense of it. We're continuing to see raids on agricultural workers, et cetera, across the country, but they also are now making it easier to get farm visas for immigrant labor to come in here. So on one side, they're trying to show the penalties, et cetera. The other side, they're trying to make it more accessible for a certain group of folks. And here's what's ironic. The Marquette Law School did a poll last November. It found that 72% of all Wisconsinites were strongly in favor of providing work permits to undocumented immigrants that had been here at least 5 years and had no criminal record. Those are the types of solutions we need to start seeing turn into legislation, right?
So what has been the impact on businesses and communities where there has been large-scale federal immigration enforcement? I'm thinking Los Angeles, Chicago, places like that.
Well, let me share this. We were scheduled to have a large federal immigration enforcement action here in November. The hotel rooms were booked, the plans were laid out, et cetera, and then we received a call that said they were going to be moved to Charlotte instead. That Milwaukee and Wisconsin had been moved down the list. We were expecting them to come in late January. We saw an action take place in Venezuela, and then things didn't go as expected in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So there's a rethinking of what they're going to do moving forward. But in speaking with our affiliates in a lot of these places that have been impacted, boy, incredible fear, right? Incredible business challenges right now. And the most detailed report that's came out of LA County, because they've had the most amount of time to do the research. But yeah, 82% of businesses surveyed reported negative impacts. 44% of those folks, those businesses, reported losing over half of their revenue. Over half of their revenue. 52% experienced reduced daily sales, decreased traffic, et cetera. And I think the biggest one in the second section is 70% of businesses are experiencing severe staffing shortages, right? So right now, throughout the nonprofit side, we're working with most of the major chambers of commerce throughout the state of Wisconsin, asking them to call their counterparts, right, in cities that have gone through a major enforcement action, asking them what lessons they learned, what they would do different, and trying to educate their chamber members, their businesses, on what they need to be doing to protect themselves and their employees moving forward.
So we've heard this question repeatedly, and I think you began to answer it as you answered the last question, but there have been rumors of Immigration and Customs Enforcement doing a surge in Milwaukee. I think you said that might have been expected in the fall. It didn't happen. might have been expected again early this year. It hasn't happened. What are you hearing now?
That there's still continuous debate going on as to how they're going to move forward. We know that Wisconsin is still on a high priority list, but we don't have anything concrete as of right now. But we are strongly recommending, once again, that all businesses and individuals prepare for that potential eventuality.
Well, when you say prepare, what kinds of things are being done now, sort of behind the scenes, to get ready in case that does happen?
Correct. So the first thing we're doing, if you run a business or if you run an organization, we really suggest you reach out to counsel if your organization has the resources. If you don't have someone with this particular area of expertise, we can connect you with someone, right? But first thing is recommending everybody do an internal audit, a risk assessment of sorts. What percentage of my employee population do I think may have issues that may be immigration related, right? How about my subcontractors that I'm dependent on? How about the supply chain, up and down? Where might there be dependencies there? And when we talk about employees, sometimes people say, yeah, I'm generally safe, et cetera, but you need to go a little bit deeper. Are any of your key employees dependent on childcare or elderly care, et cetera? Because you will see this ripple effect all the way through the system. So that's one. Number two, review your current practices, make sure all your clients' reporting is being done right. But the big one, nobody ever thinks immigration is going to show up at their door. Nobody, or their construction. And when they do, it's really easy to make mistakes that automatically waive all your rights, right? So without a judicial warrant, which means a warrant signed by a judge, immigration agents can't go into private spaces. So if you don't have labeled public-private spaces, they're allowed to go wherever they'd like. We've had instances where people have gone to a job site, said, we're coming in. A worker who didn't know any better said, okay, and they just waived that business's rights to keep them out of private locations. The next day, 60% of their workforce was gone. This building that was being built essentially stopped, right? So you gotta have that plan in place and you need to train your staff on it. Lastly, as I mentioned before, have defining signages in those places, and then you have to share the information with your associates. Once again, we have materials for you for anybody who's in need of that, so.
What are some of the other mistakes that employers might make when ICE shows up?
There's a lot of assumptions that get made that are incorrect, and that's why, once again, it's so important to meet with your counsel and put a written policy in place and make sure that people are aware of it. We've had instances where people were granting access to computer records, et cetera, and things really took a turn for far worse. Not only did they put their company at risk, but their employees as well.
So we heard recently at Rotary from an expert on population, and he talked about how there are falling birth rates pretty much around the world, and it's certainly true in the US. What's been the impact of this trend on businesses in Wisconsin?
Yeah, so birth and fertility rate linked directly to workforce, right? And when we went back and did our research, and this is a graph that we pulled for the Wisconsin Department of Administration that was just released last year. Back in the 60s, boy, we had a fertility rate of over 4.0, right? We were having kids, we were adding to our population, et cetera. Right now, we're at 1.6 and have been declining for quite some time. Now, most demographers will tell you you need a fertility rate of at least 2.1 to break even, to have enough births to replace those people that you're going to lose. So without immigration, you will see a severe decline in the population of Wisconsin and in turn in our workforce. So.
A workforce that also affects taxes, it affects the way
revenue, contributions to GDP for the state. I mean, it goes across the board. This is the forecast leading us through 2030. I know it's kind of small, but you'll see a whole lot of negative numbers there. And that's what's happening to the population across the state. When you go from the 2030 to 24, or 2030 to 2040 projections, all those numbers essentially double. So we're going to continue to see the population, and because of that, the workforce continue to plummet here throughout the state unless we do something to bring those numbers up.
And how does Wisconsin compare with other comparable states?
This is happening across the country. Birth rates all over the country are significantly down. And that's, once again, I think I've seen even a number of business leaders throughout the city of Wisconsin, of Milwaukee and Wisconsin say, hey, there's no way we're gonna birth our way out of this, right? We need to attract people. We need to bring in the talent, the workforce from other places to augment, or else we're going to stagnate economically. And when that happens, you generally tend to trend downward from there.
So what are some of the biggest myths surrounding immigration, some of the ones that you've encountered?
So I wanted to, and thank you for asking the question, wanted to address just a couple of things. I know we wanted to focus on economics today, but let's ask a couple of questions here.
So is it a crime to be undocumented in the United States?
You know, the statute calls them illegal. People talk about the illegal immigrants all the time. Technically, and you'll find this on the U.S. Department of Justice website, it's not a crime to be undocumented in the United States in and of itself. It's a civil violation. I received one of those last week when I was parked out in front of City Hall for over an hour when I only paid for an hour, right? So a civil violation is akin to a parking ticket. And the statute was written that way intentionally by members of Congress because they knew we needed the workforce.
Does the Internal Revenue Service have a system by which undocumented immigrants pay taxes?
Yeah, this really blows a lot of folks away. In 1996, Congress voted and ordered the Internal Revenue Service to create an entire system by which undocumented immigrants are supposed to pay taxes here. And it's a crime for them not to pay taxes here. So it's not a crime to be here undocumented, but it's a crime for them to be here and not pay taxes into the system. So they implemented what they call the individual taxpayer identification number. And it's the exact same number of characters as a social security number. So when somebody goes to fill out an employment form, if they don't have a social security number, they're supposed to write that number in. And that's why up to 75% of all undocumented immigrants pay full and federal taxes, including Social Security, Medicare, et cetera, even though they're not eligible for benefits.
All right. And do undocumented immigrants have to register for the Selective Service?
Yes. If you're an undocumented immigrant, right, there's such a security threat, forgive me, I had to throw that in there, that if you're an undocumented immigrant and you're male between the ages of 18 and 25, you have to, by law, register for the U.S. Selective Service and take the oath to come to our nation's defense if called upon. So, and I could go on, but I know we have limited time, but hopefully this helps to highlight just how broken this system is right now and how in need of comprehensive and deep reforms that are needed.
So I don't know if you have data on this, but what's the data on the impact of an immigrant on our tax system? Do they essentially pay more into the system than they take out, or what's the data show in aggregate?
I'm so glad you asked that. Let me just jump to this next slide here. Cato just released a study about a week and a half ago that over the last 20 years, immigrants, now this is all immigrants, have helped to reduce the federal deficit by $14.5 trillion. Not million, not billion, but over that 20-year period, trillion, right? Undocumented immigrants alone, and we've known this, and members of Congress have known this, and from the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, have known this for a long time. They contribute a whole lot more than what they take out of the system. So if we were only talking, and this is in the Cato study as well, just about undocumented immigrants, they've reduced our federal deficit over the last 20 years by over $6.5 trillion. And once again, that is just the undocumented. So the contributions are tremendous. I think the most challenging thing is getting the information, credible information out there, that people, to the communities, and getting people willing to, once again, to pull the politics out of it and just look at the information and the facts as they are.
So over the years, you've worked with a number of leading politicians, including Senator McCain, former House Speaker Paul Ryan. I believe you did some work for the Obama administration. Based on all that, how do we move this issue forward constructively? It just seems to always get bogged down in political infighting.
Yeah, and George W. too, President, is a really good man. So I've had a chance to work with people on both sides of the aisle for over 20 years on this issue. And here's the sad thing. Everybody knows what needs to be done. Every couple of years, I go down and I tour the border on the north side and the south side of the U.S.-Mexican border. We talk with everybody, right? Even Customs and Border Protection. And everybody agrees that we need the same thing. We need to fix our broken system. When I talk to CBP, they're like, I don't want to be out here rescuing moms and their kids. I want to be focusing on the bad guys. But all we're doing is rescuing these moms and kids, you know, fleeing violence and extreme poverty. I think Paul Ryan said it best when he said, you know, we need theoretically tall walls that make it hard for the bad folks to come in. But we need wide doors, right? We need wide doors so we can get the workforce that we need. Time and time again, and John McCain's the one who used this phrase, a great man, great man. He said, we don't need to choose either or. We can have a comprehensive immigration package system that provides for our economy, that provides for our security, but also provides for morality and humanity. And I really thought that sums it up. So there's bills out there that will do this, et cetera. We just got to get beyond the politics of it all.
So how do you begin to do that, though? I mean, maybe forums like this is one way to do that, but how do you get our politicians who are so dug in one way or another to begin to talk and talk reasonably about something that they all know needs to be done?
Right now, we're currently working with 7 different stakeholder groups, and not just in Wisconsin, but across the country. Educating all these groups on how to communicate with our elected officials, right? We need to remove the politics from it. It's not about my team. It needs to be about our country, right? What are the economic benefits? We're, you know, if you're a person of faith, right? Where does your faith play into all of this? And go on and on and on, and let them know that there is support there for this. Most people are backing their team because they don't think that folks are willing to make that this is important enough to enough folks, right, for them to get serious about it. You need to continue to make your voices heard. That's the only way this will get done.
So before we turn it over to the audience for some questions, anything else you'd like to add, Darryl?
No, other than, you know, I'm going to come back to this politics, and I see I did include a picture of it on the far left side of the slide. We took that picture at the end of one of the pieces of the border wall. And I love that photo because it illustrates where our country is right now. So many people feel like they have to be on one side or the other, et cetera. No, we're the United States of America, right? Yeah, we come from many different places, but it's time for us to come together and to solve this problem. It's not only in our country's best financial interests, it's in our country's best security interests, and it will also allow us to once again be able to hold our heads up with pride, saying we are the defenders of humanity, the defenders of human rights. So,
Darryl Morin, thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. And without calling Kent a liar, he misspoke. There aren't note cards on your table, but you know the rules. If you have a question, great. If you have a diatribe, the soapbox is in the park. Here we go.
Thank you for being here and for the work that you do. Quick informational question. How do you count the undocumented?
Most of that information is being done through the Census Bureau and the American Community Survey, the ACS, which happens in the period. So we continue to get calls today from people saying, hey, I got this person who came and wants to know information. Should I talk to them? And yeah, the ACS goes continuously. This is why we believe it's so important that we really follow the Constitution, and that when we do the census, everybody is asked these questions so we can get the fair and accurate counts with all these types of things. So yes.
Darryl Dave, hi, Alex Zamora. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really glad that you guys brought up the I-10 system. It's like you read my mind on that. So I had a ton of questions, but one that I'll ask you about the process. USCIS, funded by the fees that they collect, no government funding for it. Wouldn't that be a way to help the backlog and help all of the cases that are going through? Sometimes they take years and years and years. I could tell you a horror story about my wife's process, who is an immigrant and came through the right way. We don't hear about USCIS and the challenges that they're facing because of this funding.
We keep hearing about the backlogs in the system, but what we continue to see over years is the number of funding that has gone in that would actually address the backlog keeps getting cut more and more and more. So on my last trip, this was in Reynosa, just over the border from McAllen and Hidalgo. I actually met with families at this one camp that was inside of these cement walls that they had built to keep them safe from the cartels. So the cartels are real, right, et cetera, but that doesn't mean that everybody who's coming up here is with the cartel. Many of those families had been waiting for over 2 years there in this unbelievable heat for over 2 years to be able just to apply for asylum, right? Just to be able to apply for the asylum, trying to do it the right way. They could literally see the US, but they were sitting there and the system has been intentionally bogged down to prevent them from even seeking that. So it's been a challenge. So funding to relieve the backlog would be greatly appreciated, but unfortunately, we're seeing all the funding going right now to strictly enforcement, not to any practical solution that will address the main cause of the problem. Thank you for the question.
Hi, Darren, Marilka Velez. Just a quick question for my clarity. The projected population growth figures that you showed for 2030, which is not that far away, are those adjusted for our current immigration policy, or is that previously?
Those were, yeah, previously that had come out. So we're expecting to see the numbers grow even faster, being that we're experiencing negative immigration at this time. So, excellent question.
Corinne Marino Taxman. My question is about human trafficking, especially labor trafficking. Do you keep track of those numbers? How many employees are undocumented who are also being labor trafficked, and what organizations do you work with to fight that?
So I don't have those numbers with me, and I don't want to give you anything that I can't directly source, but I can tell you that we do interact with Attorney General Josh Kaul and the Wisconsin Department of Justice, as well as with our own DA, Kent Laverne, and others. That is a very serious issue that is happening and continues to happen, not just in the sex trade, which is typically affiliated with, but we will find people working in fields, et cetera, that have never been allowed to leave the property. So it continues to be a concern. We know it's a percentage, but I don't have any numbers that I'm comfortable sharing with you right now because I wouldn't be able to source them. But thank you for the question.
Good afternoon. My question goes all the way back to your very first slide. You talked about the economic impact of immigrants. I think it was like $10 billion. How does that compare on a per capita basis with non-immigrants?
Once again, I didn't bring any numbers that I can specifically source for you. And I'm always hesitant about using numbers I can't specifically source. I will share with you this. By far, and this will be relative to the Hispanic community, Latinos are starting businesses at a much higher rate than any other demographic. And to you women out there, the majority of them are Latinas. They're Hispanic women that are starting businesses, that are growing businesses, et cetera. Nationwide, if you were to look at the Hispanic population, right now they're responsible for over $4.3 billion of GDP. $4.3 trillion of GDP. So if they were to be made their own country, the Hispanic population that resides in the United States would be the 4th largest economy in the world. So there is a lot of contributions there. And it's always difficult. I hate to conflate or mix Hispanic community and undocumented because there are differences there, obviously, but I'll share with you one area where there isn't a difference. Sadly, on the nonprofit side, we spend an awful lot of time helping hate crime victims, and it's happening everywhere. It's happening everywhere. And over 97% of all the hate crime victims we help, they're US citizens. So for many people, they do directly equate being Hispanic with being undocumented, and they act on that. So anyways, thank you for asking the question, for allowing me to share that.
Good afternoon. You said that everyone agrees on what needs to be done. Question, does that include reform of our amnesty system? And if so, do you have any insight as to why, after so many decades go by with both parties at one point or another having control over Congress, no reform ever gets done?
Fundraising. Fundraising. I hate to say it, that's the answer. Both parties over the last 20 years have had a chance to do something. We've never experienced anything like what we're experiencing now, let me be clear, right? But when I've led with party leaders in both parties, there's been times where they say they're able to, I have members that won't listen. They put out an email talking about all these illegals, and they have record donations the next day, et cetera. On the other side, there's been people who put out emails who saying we're fighting and fighting and fighting for this, but nothing seems to get done, right? So fundraising, I hate to say it, has been at the heart of why we haven't been able to make the progress that we need to get. So really encourage everyone to make your voices heard, right? To speak with your elected officials, let them know that this is a priority for you and that you expect them to take action on it. Yes, sir.
Thank you. John Hine, very interesting. It appears to me that a major driver in the problem that we have today is voter suppression. I appreciate you want to stay out of politics, but do you address that issue?
Let me address it in this way, and I appreciate you, your understanding. Right now, there's a lot of information going around talking about the number of undocumented individuals that are currently voting in the US system. We've continued to look, and we haven't found it. We've been looking, we haven't found any proof that that's taking place. I think everybody agrees on the need to make sure that only eligible people should be able to vote. But I don't think the mere concern should result in legislation that makes it incredibly hard for people who are eligible to vote to be able to vote. So I'll just say that there's a lot of misinformation out there. Recently, we had to take action on another issue, healthcare, because it was being spread that illegals were getting free healthcare coverage. And if we can't provide that to US citizens, why should they be getting that? Let me say this right now. The undocumented do not get free healthcare coverage, right? So it's all those types of things that we're having to message out. I just wish our megaphone was bigger so that more people would be able to hear it when we send out that valid, fact-based information.
Hi, I'm wondering if you could comment on a certain group of immigrants that want to pull up the ladder behind them and become kind of hawks on immigration enforcement?
So it's been interesting. I will share with you. We've received requests from individuals for assistance to help their families and friends, and this is on the nonprofit side, who are very anti-immigrant, who were very anti-immigrant very vocally. And we must admit that is a frustration. We're glad to be able to assist folks. That's what we're here to do, right? But it's obvious that some people have gotten caught up in the rhetoric, right? And then when they stop to see how it impacts them, their family or friends, it becomes a different story. Over 56% of all undocumented here in the state of Wisconsin are part of a mixed status family or relationship. And not enough people realize that, you know. I'll share with you too, I think David, I shared this with you beforehand. One of our first immigration summits that we did up here, we had the leader of the Irish League in Chicago come up. And the first thing he said is, we're everywhere. There's a ton of undocumented Irish, right? How perfect that we're on St. Patrick's Day, everywhere. He's like, but the difference with us is we look like everybody else. So, nobody really points us out. But yeah, that is a frustration. That is a frustration. Any other questions? Well, thank you once again for giving us the opportunity to come and speak with you here today. I'm available if you have any additional questions.